Hello and welcome to another video. In this video, I'd like to talk about a very interesting topic that has employed, or how should I say it, encourage people to dedicate a lot of time and resources. Time that was interesting, that's why I left, into researching what time is, what does it mean, how does it influence ourselves, us, and the greater, cosmic relationships with it. It's a very interesting and very significant thing in our lives, even though we don't usually pay too much attention to it, or we don't discover the roots, except if you are somebody who's interested in quantum mechanics and physics and mathematics. Otherwise, or astronomy, you don't really bother thinking too deeply about time itself. And as I was reading my last book, which I encourage everybody to read, with the title The Big Leap, it's a very interesting conclusion that the author makes at the end about the Einsteinian time versus the Newtonian time that we call the normal one. And it's a very interesting concept, and I'd like to introduce you guys to it, because the way we usually look at time is, and we've all experienced this in the past, is if you're doing something you're very interested in or very passionate about, or you're having a good time, it feels like the time is just flying. I'm sure everybody's experienced that before. But if you're doing something that you don't like, or you feel the pain doing it, or you have a negative emotions associated with it, then the time is going as slow as it can go. And every second, it's like it's been a year. I'm sure you've experienced both things in your life. And it's a very interesting thing to look at it, because by the Einstein, by the theory that he's produced, is that it's relative, the time is relative. And this is something that we all experience, and I'm sure, as I've already said, that you've experienced both aspects of it. But what is interesting about the Einsteinian time, or that idea, or at least what it struck me as very interesting, is that we can actually manage that ourselves. So first of all, it gives us an enormous power over the laws of universe, let's put it that way, if you think about it. Because if I can manage time myself, and if I can think about it, or implement it in my life by my own design, that's a huge advantage that we have as human beings and we don't cherish at all. And on the other hand, we can also make our life miserable and long and full of frustrations, just by the way that we manage time and how we associate ourselves to it. And that's a very interesting topic about time, that I would really like everybody who's listening to me to be encouraged to think about it, and how we can influence ourselves and our environment, so that the time for us will flow, that we will live in this state of where we are really feeling the flow of consciousness, of life, or time, or however you want to put it. Because it is crucially important that we understand the fundamentals that we already discussed in previous topics, and there's a lot of people who talk about these things. But it just struck me as very a profound way of looking at time and life, and the ability that we have as human beings to actually manage it, to put ourselves in a state where it will allow us to be part of the flow, to be part of this life and the stream of consciousness, and experience time and reality in a proper sense. So it's a very deep topic. But if we look at it from the practical perspective, bottom line is, we all want to experience life in as good way that we can imagine. We all have the fundamentally similar needs and way of looking at things, and so on and so forth. But we don't usually harness all the tools that we have in our arsenal as being human beings, to really participate 100%, and to really be present, and to see how, like, the subject of time is relative to who we are, and how we create, and how we can create. And it was just a very interesting and eye-opening idea that I've recently run across, and I'd like to encourage you to think about it. How do you manage your time? What is your perspective on time? How much time in your life is when you're in flow and when you're feeling good and everything is, you know, time flies, let's put it that way. And on the other hand, how much time you spend in the environment or considering that time is not ticking, it's not going when you're looking at the watch. This is the encouragement for this week. I hope you it gives you just a little bit of gets you going in the process of thinking about the time and the relativity of everything. And it's yeah, this will be it for this week. So see you next week.